What if the people who understand the kingdom of God best are not the powerful, not the educated, not the experienced, but the smallest and most overlooked? What if what looks insignificant in the world is exactly what heaven considers essential? And what if the way to receive something greater is to return to something simple? In Luke 18:15-17, people were bringing even their infants to Jesus so that he might touch them. This was a common expression of blessing in that time, bringing children to a respected teacher or spiritual figure to receive a touch, a prayer, or a word of favor. But when the disciples saw this happening, they reacted by trying to stop it. They rebuked the people. The text does not say exactly why, but we can understand the likely reasons from the cultural and practical mindset of the moment. Jesus was traveling, teaching, and interacting with crowds. The disciples may have thought that children were a distraction, or that Jesus' time should be reserved for more important matters. In their view, significance was connected to urgency, status, and perceived importance. But Jesus responds in a way that completely redefines that perspective. He calls the children to him. And he says something simple, yet deeply powerful. "Let the little children come to me, and do not hinder them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these." This statement shifts the entire focus of the moment. The disciples saw interruption. Jesus saw access. The disciples saw distraction. Jesus saw illustration. The children were not an obstacle to his work. They were a living example of what he had been teaching about the kingdom of God. Then Jesus adds a second statement that deepens the meaning. "Truly I tell you, anyone who will not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter it." This is not a minor comment. It is a foundational teaching about how the kingdom is received. The key word here is receive. Not earn, not achieve, not conquer, but receive. That alone changes the entire framework of spiritual understanding. To understand this passage more deeply, it helps to look at what children represented in that cultural context. Children in ancient society did not hold status, authority, or decision-making power. They were dependent. They were learners. They were receivers rather than providers. They did not come with claims of achievement. They came with openness. And Jesus uses that very quality to describe how the kingdom of God is received. This does not mean that children are spiritually superior in every way. Rather, it means that the posture they naturally embody becomes a model for spiritual reception. The disciples' reaction reveals something important about human tendency. They assume that access to Jesus should be controlled, prioritized, or filtered based on perceived importance. But Jesus interrupts that assumption. He does not merely allow the children, he welcomes them. And more than that, he places them at the center of his teaching about the kingdom. This moment is both gentle and radical. It is gentle because it involves children being embraced, blessed, and included. It is radical because it overturns assumptions about status, access, and spiritual worthiness. The kingdom of God, according to Jesus in this passage, is not reserved for those who appear most qualified in human terms. It is received by those who approach with openness, dependence, and simplicity. That idea challenges many common assumptions about spiritual life. In many systems, access is based on achievement. Higher levels require more knowledge, more experience, more qualification. But here, Jesus describes entry into the kingdom not as advancement, but as reception. The image is not of climbing upward, but of opening inward. Children do not approach with arguments about their worthiness. They come with trust. They do not present achievements. They come with need. They do not demand recognition. They come ready to receive. Jesus uses this posture as the defining characteristic of those who enter the kingdom. Then he warns indirectly through contrast. Anyone who does not receive the kingdom like a child will not enter it. This is not about exclusion based on age or status. It is about posture of heart. The emphasis is not on becoming childish, but on becoming childlike in trust and openness. The disciples' earlier attempt to stop the children becomes more significant in this light. They were unintentionally blocking what Jesus was intentionally welcoming. They were filtering access based on their own understanding of importance. But Jesus corrects that understanding by showing that in the kingdom of God, access is not controlled by human hierarchy. This passage also reveals something about how Jesus values attention. He is not too busy for the smallest individuals. He is not too focused on greater matters to notice those considered insignificant. Instead, he pauses his movement, calls the children to him, and blesses them. The act of blessing is not rushed, it is intentional. He does not merely acknowledge them, he engages with them. This moment would have been striking to those watching because it challenges assumptions about what matters most in a spiritual leader's attention. The kingdom of God is often revealed in moments that appear small, but carry deep meaning. Here, the simple act of children being brought forward becomes a teaching moment for everyone present. It shows that spiritual truth is not only communicated through formal teaching, but also through lived interaction. The children themselves become a living illustration of the message. They are not described as speaking, arguing, or explaining. Their presence alone communicates the lesson. That simplicity is part of the power of the passage. Another important aspect is the contrast between control and reception. The disciples try to control access. Jesus invites reception. Control is based on evaluation, deciding who is worthy or appropriate. Reception is based on openness, allowing what is given to be received without conditions. This contrast runs throughout the passage. The disciples' intention may have been protective or practical, but it reflects a human tendency to filter spiritual moments through judgment of importance. Jesus redirects that tendency toward openness. The phrase, "do not hinder them," is especially important. It suggests that barriers can be unintentionally created even by well-meaning people. In spiritual life, hindrance is not always active rejection. Sometimes it is subtle restriction based on assumptions. Jesus removes that restriction by explicitly welcoming the children. Then he connects their presence directly to the kingdom. For the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. This does not mean ownership in a literal sense, but alignment in nature. The kingdom is described as accessible to those who share the qualities the children represent: openness, dependence, trust, and lack of self-justification. The second statement makes this even clearer. Entry into the kingdom requires receiving it like a child. Receiving implies that it is given, not taken. It is offered, not achieved. This changes the way spiritual life is understood. It is not primarily about accumulation of status, but about posture of reception. The simplicity of a child becomes a mirror for spiritual understanding. Children do not overcomplicate access. They come when called. They respond when invited. They trust when approached. That responsiveness becomes the model Jesus presents. The passage also invites reflection on what complicates spiritual reception in adulthood. Experience, pride, control, and comparison can all create barriers to simple reception. The disciples' reaction reflects one form of that barrier, deciding who should or should not have access based on perceived importance. Jesus dismantles that barrier through inclusion. He does not rebuke the children. He rebukes the restriction placed upon them. And in doing so, he reveals that the kingdom is not guarded by exclusivity, but opened through humility. The blessing of the children is also significant because it shows value without condition. They are not blessed because of achievement. They are blessed because they are present and willing. That reinforces the idea that reception is not earned. The scene itself is quiet, but its meaning is deep. A group of children being brought forward, disciples attempting to stop it, Jesus intervening, children being welcomed and blessed, and a declaration about the nature of the kingdom. Each movement builds on the last, revealing a progression from restriction to openness, from assumption to revelation. The final teaching leaves a lasting impression. If the kingdom is received like a child, then the posture of heart matters more than position, experience, or status. This does not diminish growth or maturity. Instead, it redefines the foundation of spiritual access. It is not complexity that opens the kingdom. It is receptivity. It is not self-sufficiency. It is openness to receive. The children in this passage become a living illustration of that truth. They do not argue for access. They simply come. They do not explain their worthiness. They are brought and received. And in that simplicity, they reflect the nature of the kingdom itself. Jesus uses this moment to shift perception from restriction to invitation, from evaluation to reception, from control to openness. And in doing so, he places the smallest among them at the center of one of his clearest teachings about the kingdom of God. The message is not complicated, but it is profound. Receive the kingdom like a child, because what matters is not how much you bring, but how open you are to receive. Thank you for watching this video. If this message gave you clarity or encouragement, please like the video, follow the channel, and share it with someone who may need this reminder today.